Hello and welcome everybody to this session on optimising your technology spend to maximise delivery against your organisation's objectives. I'm Annie Legg, co-founder and member of Dot Project, and I'll be your host for this session. Dot Project is a technology cooperative and we guide teams to build strong foundations for using technology to enable them, charities, community organisations and social enterprises to grow and thrive. We provide information, mentoring and practical support to strengthen your digital resilience. So the focus of this session is ways in which to look at your technology costs against the objectives of your organisation, evaluating technology costs, assessing costs against your desired outcomes, some pointers for optimising your costs, and identifying those solutions that can deliver more benefit for you. The speaker for this session is Chris Charlton, one of our technology mentors at Dot Project. Chris is a hands-on delivery-focused technologist with a background as IT director, CTO, and chief architect. He's got a broad background of skills across development, software development, security, and cloud technologies, and significant experience in data and information security. Chris works alongside us at Dot Project to deliver technology mentoring and training programs to our clients. If you've got any questions for Chris throughout this presentation, please post them in the Q&A box on the right-hand side of your screen. And with that, I'd like to hand over to Chris.
Hi everyone. Optimizing your technology spend to maximize delivery against your organization's objectives. It's quite a mouthful. So what we're going to try and talk about now, well, we'll look at your technology costs. We'll give you an indication of how to look at them. And what kind of criteria you might use to assess your costs to see whether they're reasonable against what you're trying to achieve. So in this session, what you'll learn, hopefully over the next 35 minutes, is how you can evaluate your technology costs, how you can assess them against your desired outcomes. And this is the key bit, really. How do you measure whether or not you're getting any kind of value for money? And you'll get some pointers to optimize costs and for also identifying what options or solutions might give you business benefit or more business benefit than you're getting now. First off, though, how would you go about evaluating your technology costs? And there's slightly more to it than might seem to meet the eye. First off, well, what are they? Technology costs is more than just how much you're spending in pounds, shilling, and pence. It's more than what you're actually putting on your credit card or paying in a monthly license or something like that. That's obviously part of it. It's your laptops, your phones, your networks, your any other physical stuff you might be paying for, your licenses. But it's also what you have got in terms of direct and indirect costs. Indirect costs might include the time that you're spent supporting or wrestling with your tech that could be better used elsewhere. Some of that might be called opportunity cost. You also want to know who your support people are as part of this, because some people might be dedicated to doing your technology. Other people are volunteers, and you need to understand how these are factoring into your overall costs, because this is where this equation between cost and value comes in. If you are spending money on technology or other things, and that cost could have been spent on delivering your end solution, helping people, supporting your organization's objectives, how do you work out where that balance sits? How do you work out whether it's better to be spending money on tech because of the value it's giving you, or better to be diverting that actually to your main goals? So how do you know how much you're spending? How do you do this? Well, the easy answer is you do a survey. Do a survey of your IT and your IT related costs to better understand what you're using now. So in practical terms, I'll show you on the next page, what you're trying to do is pull together some kind of a spreadsheet. And in that spreadsheet, you're looking at your tools and your applications that you use or consume. And you want to be looking at your direct support tools. So it could be the case management tool that you're using, or it could be your back office, your HR or your finance application. You want to also include your technology that you rely on, the wires, the servers, the PCs, network, software, your cloud solutions, anything else that you've got, which you would loosely call technology. But then also you want to be pulling together a list of who's supporting those. Support could be what you're paying for directly, which are suppliers or partners, but also it could be what you're paying for indirectly. So it could be staff who are supporting these things or using these things, or volunteers that are involved. A couple of examples here. It could be somebody who's doing backups of your finance system. It could be somebody who's helping to support your website on an ad hoc basis. Now, all of these people, you could say, oh, well, that's free. We don't need to worry about it. But if this is somebody in staff, well, you are paying for it. So if they're spending a day, a month even, doing some things like performing backups, making sure that your system is working and things like this, well, how much does that cost for their time? Because they could be doing something else. They could be actually contributing to your own goals. Same with volunteers. It's great to have some volunteers that will put together a website for you or maintain it. But if they're doing that, they're not doing other things for you. Now, that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be doing it, because what we're looking at here is this value equation between how much it costs you in the round to do a thing and how much value you get from it. But what I'm saying here is don't just ignore it. Pull it all together so you can take a rational view of whether or not the effort that you're putting in, as well as the cost that's going out of the business, whether the effort that you're putting in is appropriate for what you're achieving from it. How much effort do you put into pulling this all together? It should be sufficient to help inform you of, if you like, the headlines. What are those direct costs? So what are all the major pieces of expenditure that's going out, and why you're doing it? And so it's worth understanding how those are put together. Your license model, for example, but also the people costs, including the external and not paid for. And have a look as well for things like duplication. It might alert you to gaps as well. And by duplications, I mean things like you may be spending licenses on Office products, on Microsoft, as well as on Google. Or you could have Zoom and Teams, for example. And where you have these, also have a look to see if there's any gaps in functionality. Some people are using a bit over here, some people are using it something else over there. Why is there the differences? So what are you trying to pull together? Something like this. It's not complicated, fairly simple spreadsheet. In this example, and I'm hoping something like this will be shared for you, you have a list of your applications, a list of your technologies, a list of your suppliers. But what we're doing is we're pulling it together and finding the key information that might help you make a decision later about whether this is good value. So here we've got the name, the cost model. Is this a yearly fee? Is it a monthly fee? Is it per user? Is it does it include all your users? And by that I mean that could be volunteers as well as staff. So pull all of this together to give you a view, so that you can have a view of whether you're getting value for it. Where does this come from? Well, there's some obvious sources. One is your whoever your finance team is, and depending on your scale, that finance team might be just one person, another volunteer, but somebody is out there making a note for your accounts and things, and knows where these formal costs are going out. But also do a poll of your staff. Ask what they're using. Some kind of survey tool is good if you can manage it. There's a load of free ones out there, Google and MS Forms. But you want to ask your staff and your volunteers, because sometimes what they're doing is, whether directly or indirectly, paying for what's called shadow IT, stuff that you don't necessarily know about. So it could be that you've got a Teams license because you've got Microsoft Office, but actually there are some people using Zoom because they didn't know about it, and possibly even paying for a licensed version of Zoom, and they're just putting that license through on some kind of expenses. So do you know what your people are doing? That's staff and volunteers, and pull together that list of whatever's out there, including this shadow IT. What you want to know is, obviously, what is costing you direct money? and that could be straight from the finance. What's costing you indirect money? So this could be ad hoc staff payments, for example, but also the time it takes. If somebody, as I say, is working to maintain or support or keep a thing working, then it's time that they're not spending doing other things. And look for those tools as well that are not apparently costing you money. Things like free Zoom licenses or a volunteer scheduling spreadsheet. The point is here, what would happen if they went away? Okay, what if that volunteer wasn't there anymore, or that spreadsheet was lost? What we're looking for here is, as well as things that are doing stuff for you, there's also an element of risk to pull out. What might happen if that disappeared? Would it be a real inconvenience, or would it not matter? So hopefully that gives you an idea of what you're spending money on and where your costs are. And that cost has to include the effort that you're putting into it. What do you then do with it? How do you assess your technology costs against the desired outcomes that you're after? And then how do you judge whether those costs are reasonable? So first off, there's some really obvious things to do with any real money that's going out your business, right? And before you try and decide whether or not your costs are reasonable, a first sensible thing to do is to go through those costs and make sure that they are optimized. You're just spending what you need to be spending them. So for example, are you receiving a charity or a third sector discount on any technology costs that are going out? Because you should be, basically. And if your supplier won't give you that, a discount, and when I'm talking discounts here, you really should be looking at 40% plus. So you should not be paying anywhere near full price. So if a supplier will not give you that 40% discount or more, then frankly, go to somebody else. There's somebody else who will give you almost an identical service and will give you a massive, great big discount. Another question, are you correctly licensed for your organization side? Are you paying for 10 user licenses where actually you've only got 5 people using it at the moment? Especially with many charities or third sector organizations, there's often quite a lot of churn as far as staff and volunteers are concerned. Are you still aligned to the size of your organization? Could well be that there's a risk here that actually you're not paying for as many licenses as you should. But typically it's the other way around. You find yourself paying for a license for somebody who is no longer with your organization. So have a look, and also remember to keep reviewing this over time. And also when you're looking at licenses like this, remember the distinction between core staff and even part-time staff and volunteers. Do you really need to get a license for a volunteer or for every volunteer? This is where sometimes the costs might be for a CRM, for example, can start to pick up. Does everyone in your organization need licenses, and can you get special arrangements? So this is the first thing that you do. Look down your list of technologies, and are you paying a sensible amount for them, assuming that they are valuable for you? Secondly, are you getting value for money? Well, again, a couple of obvious things to look for is there any functional overlap? This is often indicative of inefficiencies in your organization where you might be paying twice. So for example, are you paying for multiple collaboration tools? That could be Zoom and Teams, or it could be Office, Microsoft Office and Google, or it could be Slack and Teams. Is there technologies you're using for more or less the same thing across different parts of your organization? Because you may well be paying for them twice. You may have overlaps of people where they've also got Slack and Teams, for example. Do you really need to be spending all of that? Are there any opportunities to use a technology that you're using over here, over there? Are you getting best value for money for it? So a good example here would be if you're using, for example, a case management tool, and you're using it for one part of your organization and not another. License cost notwithstanding, you look at your more complex, bigger things that you're spending money for and see whether you can repurpose elsewhere. If you can do that with just a bit of internal free training, as it were, that's an awful lot better than buying another tool. And this also applies to support organizations. Are you getting good value for the services that you're paying for? Are you even using that support service? Talking about support, is it proportionate to your need? Yeah? And by support here, I'm really thinking more about the formal paid for services. But if you're going to pay for something, are you getting value for money for it? Are you happy with that? One of the issues I often see is that somebody provides a service for you, right? And then, whether it's a bunch of laptops or your email system or something like this, but then and provides a support wrap around it, so you pay whatever, whether it's £10 a month, £100 a month, or whatever, depending upon your size, to support that. But often, no one ever calls back on that support. You don't follow up with it with managing of licenses or dealing with issues. So if you're paying for something, are you actually getting value for money for it? It could be that it's a pure insurance policy. If all goes pear-shaped, you've got somebody to call. But actually, most of these support services anticipate a certain amount of callback. You use that service maybe once or twice a month or something. Make sure you are actually getting value for money for that. And if you're not using it, ask yourself why and have a look at it. Have a conversation with them. Make sure what you're getting for your organization and for your organization's needs does match the contract that you've got. So where you pay money, as I say, are you happy with it? Where you don't pay money, is there a risk to be managed? Are you getting things like backups done properly? And is it right for your organization? And does it feel reasonable? Right? This whole step is about giving you the information that you need to feel comfortable for that. And by comfortable, is there a gap that you're a bit worried about, or do you think you're paying too much? There's no right answer here. It should be best for you. So this gives us an idea of how much we're spending, and it gives us some opportunities to reduce down that to an optimum level. But is it good value? Right? Now what you need to do is have a look at the contribution for each of those technologies into what you're trying to achieve, right? And have a look at that and see how well it's delivering on your outcomes, how much it's enabling you to do what it is that you're trying to do, and then giving you the opportunity to say, is it good value? So first of all, what do we mean by value? Well, in terms of going out, cost as it were, technology costs us. We're spending money on it, as we've described. Hopefully, we've optimized that down to the right number of licenses or whatever. We're putting effort into that technology. This is time that people are spending. This is opportunity cost, because if you weren't doing that, you could be doing something else. We've got payments potentially going out for support, and we may have other indirect costs there. Time it takes for training or maintenance or other activities. Again, it's effort, it's opportunity cost that we could be doing other things. So typically a technology cost might be composed of several of these lines. And it's the same whether you're talking about something like Zoom, or whether it's your catalog management system, or whatever it is that you're talking about. Now, if you've got it there, it should be giving you some value, right? And value, there's three real sorts here. It should be allowing you to do something that you couldn't do otherwise. So if you took away all your video conferencing and you needed that because this is how you deliver your services, you talk to people, you collaborate with people, that would obviously be a bad thing. But make sure, you've had that thought process. So what things might you not be able to do if that technology was there? It was not there. Another thing technology gives you in terms of value, it either improves or optimizes your processes. So for example, you might have a case management system, or you might be using HubSpot or something like that to do marketing and managing of donors, right? You could do those things a different way, right? You could do those things with a spreadsheet. But the important point is, if you've got one of those tools, it is freeing up time of your staff, or allowing you to do improvements in how you reach out to people that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. Yeah, you may be it may be optimizing the amount of time spent. So instead of somebody having to hire somebody to do a full-time job managing donors, actually this does it for a half day a week or something by somebody. So make sure you understand what that's doing to optimize your process and what the alternative would be. If that was not there, how would you do it? It could fall into that first category where we just couldn't do it. But the chances are, where we're talking about improving or optimizing processes, you could do it manually. So how big a thing would that be? And then it also, obviously, it might facilitate revenue generation, donor management, and things like that. Again, you could do it manually, but what value is it giving you? And this is where we need to be going through this thought process to understand how much this thing is costing us compared to how much value it's giving us, to make sure that that equation is sensible. Now, for a given technology, is this value for money for you? And this is important because there's many people on this call, many different organizations. Every organization has got essentially a different set of dynamics. So you need to understand, I can't tell you it does make sense. What you need to do is have a look against your organization and what you're trying to achieve to understand whether it makes sense for you. Yeah. How important is this equation for each of the technologies got for you? And only you can make that decision. But useful questions include, how much of your revenue is being spent on that technology, right? And if you spent it somewhere else, would you get more value? Would you reach more people, save more hedgehogs, whatever your organization is trying to achieve? Consider the net cost in this. If it's making you money, then leave it alone unless you can further improve it. Okay, because if however much it's costing, if it's bringing more value in, and when I say how much it's costing, include the cost of people there. Yeah, if you've got a technology which might be quite cheap, but actually it requires 6 people to run, include the total cost there to be that 6 people plus the cost of technology. And you should be looking at it making more money for you than that. So it's maybe not quite as simple as it seems. But otherwise, if it's a cost, as a rule of thumb, if the technology is delivering or enabling your core organization outcomes, then a double-digit impact on your revenue might be justifiable. So if you're spending 10%, 12, 15, 20% even of your costs on that technology, if it's really delivering your core outcomes, right, then it might be justifiable. If your technology is not related to core organization outcomes, then you should not be spending more than low or single-digit percentages of your revenue. Yeah. And if you can't identify the value, then basically stop spending money on it. And I'll be going around and saying, well, I'm going to switch this thing off. Does anybody care? And if no one says why they care, then just do it. But otherwise, you should find it falls into one or other of these categories. And you should still be able to ask that question, what if I switch it off? Does anybody care? But it should be really obvious to you why it's important. So in terms of technologies that are delivering your core outcomes, you could be talking about a CRM, for example, right? Or you're managing your service users if you've got something like that, or you're managing your collections. And if you didn't have that, you wouldn't necessarily be able to provide output for your website or other things. You're the only ones who can judge that, but you could potentially be looking at that kind of percentage and decide that it's reasonable. Anyone who's spending more than a very low percentage on your HR system, your even things like volunteer scheduling or accounts, you should not be spending very much money on those. And if you are, you need to go and find out why and do something about it. As part of this process, don't be concerned about technology changing, right? Businesses change all the time. We've done it hugely around COVID. You know, how we engage with our customers, for example, in whatever sort of organization you've got, the chances are that changed through the COVID period and is changing again now as COVID is sort of passing. So if your business model can change, don't worry about your technology strategy, your technology model changing as well. So have no qualms about cancelling contracts if they don't make sense. Everything that we've talked about here is just about providing you information to help inform that decision making. And when you're looking at this, be careful of things like introductory offers, jam tomorrow licenses and stuff like that. I'm sure you look into that when you putting together your your audit of your technology costs. So we've compared the two, and that's given us a good idea of where you're getting value. How about optimizing it to deliver better value? Be smarter in what you expend cash or people or effort into. So optimize your spend. As I said before, make sure you've got discounts. Make sure you're paying for the right level of license and support. Suggest optimizations. If you are using more than one thing to do something similar, well, can you standardize on tools? Now, it may not seem a great advantage in terms of cost necessarily, but when you also include the time it takes to learn these tools and to make sure everyone are familiar with them, actually it starts to make much more sense. So don't forget to include the opportunity cost, the cost to keep these things going. And look for value. There's tools out there that are free or very low cost that can deliver great value. And as an aside, when you do this, don't forget to look at the risk side of it, the GDPR and things like that. Are there any gaps? When you're looking at this, it may well be that you have a look at your business, what you're trying to achieve, right? And you identify manual activities. People are moving data around, sending emails, fiddling around with a spreadsheet, doing things that actually you could potentially automate. They're muddling along. And again, this is opportunity cost. If there are activities that that are highly manual, that your staff are performing, and they could be doing other things, then have a look and see whether there are tools or technologies out there that could support you. Have a look for tech which is not being supported. That's an element of risk. Problem is, what happens if it goes wrong and no one knows how it works? So just be aware of that kind of thing. And areas where there is risk, for example, if your tech failed, do you care? Would it cause real pain if it was until it was fixed or replaced? I mean, would you care, for example, if your account system was down for a week or two? Probably not so much. Would you care if your CRM was down? Probably more so. It might mean that you can't do it. What about if a key volunteer that you've got goes on holiday, all right, or leaves? Yeah, these are all things that you should possibly be aware of in terms of gaps. And the importance to you then, it depends upon how important it is for your business operation. So what can you do if you spot some of those gaps? Very much this is dependent upon the nature of your organization, what you're trying to achieve. But depending upon your size and your scale, there's a load of technologies out there. I'm not going to say on this slide because it's the kind of thing which is very dependent upon what you're doing. But I understand these are going to be shared. There are links associated here. Have a look and see what there is, because most of them are cheap to free even. And if these are covering areas where you're currently doing a lot of manual activity, there could be significant cost savings for you here, freeing up time for other people for other activities. Are you maximizing value for money for the tech that you've got? Yeah, have a look for overlaps and functionality, as I've already said. Standardize where you can. Training, if nothing else, it gives you a good advantage. Have a look for opportunities to use the tech elsewhere. Reuse your skills and expertise. There's a great opportunity to get greater value for money by doing this kind of thing. What about your partner sister organizations? Are there opportunities to share skills or even licenses across similar organizations? And have a look as well where you've got something that's relatively expensive that isn't being used by very many people. If it's just a matter of internal training, is there better value you can get? And this also applies out there to your support organizations. If you're spending more than sort of £10 to £30 per person per month for core technologies, and this applies anything from things like your HR system and accounting system, right the way through to CRMs and stuff like that, you're probably spending too much money. So have a look at that. Make sure that whatever support you're getting tangible business value from as well. And if you don't fully understand whether you're getting good business value, go back to them and ask them. Ask them to tell you what value you're giving them from their support, via their support organizations, and have that discussion, because especially in the third sector, there's often a great desire to actually help organizations such as yourself. And if that support isn't working well, have a conversation and see if it can be improved. Pricing, I've talked to you already about making sure that you're getting discounting. There's some really obvious stuff out there, and the numbers are quite large, so make sure at the very minimum you're getting a good discount. Charity Digital there are a UK broker, as it says there, for a lot of major software discounts. Check the links through, and this is a really quick and easy win. So in summary, there are lots of simple steps you can take to understand what technology is costing you. So do a bit of an audit, ask around. You do not need to be in any way technical to understand how much technology is costing you, but make sure that you look at that from a full life cycle cost. So how much it also costs to support, how much training is, what happens when somebody leaves, and things like that. Understand as well what might cost you if it breaks, and factor this into the equation. Then there are lots of simple steps you can take to understand to a degree what value you're getting for your technology. Yeah, you can have a look at what contribution any of your technology spend is to what you're trying to achieve in your organization, how it's contributing to your end goals, right? And yes, it needs some intuition and subjective observation, but you can certainly identify the good and the bad, and you can get that gut feel about whether you are comfortable with the levels that you're spending. Yeah, do you feel that at the end of the day this seems expensive, or you're not getting value for money, or, and this is a useful indicator, you just don't know, right? That on its own should raise an alarm bell, because if you don't know, and people generally don't know, then it gives you an opportunity to go back and give it another poke and prod. And there are, as I've described here, some simple steps to compare the value you get from the technology with your business objectives. Look at the percentages there and look to see how many people are involved. And don't forget, there are lots of organizations you can get help with. You're not alone in this. Organizations such as Charity Digital and others can give you lots of support on this. And there's a bunch of them listed there. That's the end of this presentation. If you can type any questions into the general chat and Q&A, and we'll see what we can do to help answer them. And unfortunately, I have a sound problem, so I can't hear anything whatsoever, but I will promise to try and give some kind of answer to anything anyone can put into the general chat.
Yeah, thank you everybody for coming along to session today. If you've got, we'll just give it a minute or so to see if you've got any questions, and I will be typing them directly to Chris. We did have one question that was around the technology audit template that Chris shared, and you will get that after this session, and also a copy of the slides and the resources. So just give it a minute or so if anyone's got any questions. You might all be at the end of your long day attending lots of sessions. I'm not sure if we're going to have any questions coming through. If you do have any, please do get in contact, because we can always answer them directly. So thank you very much to our speaker, Chris, and thank you for attending. I believe you need to rate the session by using the star system at the bottom of your screen. And this session, I think, is the last of today's Heritage Digital Academy Live. And we hope you've enjoyed the day and gained some additional knowledge and skills to build digital sustainability. I can see there's a lot of people
thanks for the comment
from a lot of places. So yeah, and feedback survey will be sent out by email, and all sessions will be available on demand, and obviously any resources that we've shared today. Thank you all for attending, and thank you to Chris.